And when you knock us down, we're going to get up. And on the way up, we're going to bite a kneecap off.
Go ahead and say it, Ed. Go Tigers!
When I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous.
You like that? You like that?
F it. Jamar's down there somewhere.
In the room, saying select Marcus Davenport.
No!
Splash Brothers. Yeah.
It's playoff. Keep going, Brace.
Playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs.
If it doesn't fit, you must acquit.
What is up, guys? Dirty Boot Sports here, and we are bringing you a new podcast segment. We're diving a little bit into fantasy football. Season's coming around, so we want to bring some news to y'all and use whatever knowledge we have to, I guess, provide a little help to anyone that plays fantasy football out there. So today we got me, Clay, here. We got Ty, we got Josh, and we have Derek Sanders. First time on the pod. So, Josh, take it off a bit and let us know what all we're going to be doing with this.
Well, I just wanted to start by giving everybody a little background. So for those that didn't know, this podcast has actually started because of a group of us started playing in a fantasy football league called Dirty Boot Fantasy Football League. We're going to talk about fantasy football options for every week, injuries that come up, who had good weeks the previous week, who we think is going to do good this upcoming week. We all love fantasy football. Been playing it for several years. I've been playing it probably as long as some of these guys have been in diapers, to be honest.
Look, what year did you start playing in Dirty Boot?
I don't know the exact year, but it had to be.
It's got to be 10 plus, right?
Oh, and Dirty?
Yeah, Dirty Boot.
Oh, it's over. I was one of the founding members, so whenever we started it, I've been it ever since. It's been over 10 years, probably. I would think
at least
close to 15, maybe even.
Yeah, I got the trophy at the house, so it's got to be at least 2012.
Well, whenever we started, you had to buy the pack. We had the board. You know, you couldn't do it on your phone. You couldn't do it on a computer. We actually had somebody. I think we paid somebody to actually put the stickers up.
Or we volunteer the person that had drank the most, and they half-heartedly volunteered.
But I think I started. I was maybe in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Wow.
So
that's longer than I've been alive. Yeah,
longer
I've been here
than
since 2000. So.
I mean, I've been doing this a long, long time. But we all enjoy fantasy football. We all enjoy sports in general. And because this started from our fantasy football league, I mean, I thought me and Kyle was talking, how can we not have a fantasy football podcast every week when this is how it all began? Yep. So that's kind of what the background, and that's where we're going. We're hoping to do this every week to try to help some people out that's got some questions about their fantasy team, and kind of go from there.
Yeah, and Derek, introduce yourself a bit because, you know, Kyle's been hyping you up a bit. He calls you the fantasy guru, so we're expecting some good knowledge coming from you.
Man, I don't know about a guru, but I just spend a fair amount of time listening, reading about details that come out about players, teams, you know, little things that they don't really put out, like, you know, in the rankings, this, that, and the other. That's what I was telling Kyle about the other night whenever we were talking. You know, these analysts come out and they talk about, like, you know, this is going to be a sleeper, this is a breakout, this is a bust, this, that, and the other, which we'll talk about some on this segment. But I really, like, I'm that guy. I want to know why.
Yeah.
Like, I want to know, why do you think he's a sleeper? Why, you know, is his O-line banged up, like, you know, or is he got additions to his online, you know, now? This, you know, I want to know why. And that's what Kyle, he was like, well, that's why, you know, you probably dive into it a little bit more than the average person, I guess.
Yeah, and I'm kind of the same. I kind of do the same thing, yeah.
And
hey,
the more work you put in it.
When you want to win, you got to do what you got to do.
Right. The more work you put in it, the more you're going to get out of it.
Yeah, and work, like, check weather reports.
Yeah.
Always.
You know,
that's
when it comes to kickers, you know,
that's exactly right. But yeah, no, I've been playing for right at 10 years. So,
you know, you had a chance to get in this league many times.
A long time ago. We actually discussed that a little bit ago before you got here. But
if there was a spot open today, would you lay down the 150 to get in?
No.
Gosh,
I was telling them, as much as I enjoy and like getting into it, the stress of that money on the line, I don't know. I like doing it for fun. And
it's still stressful.
Yeah.
If you only knew how much Ty put on these games every day.
Yeah,
you would have stressed out last night.
It all started because of fantasy, huh? That was the start of it.
It all started because I saw my brother play MLB. Well, it wasn't the show back then. It was just MLB 96. Him and his friend betting. Thanks, brother.
Whoa. Okay. 96.
Yep.
Wow. So you want to get into this? Let's start talking some rankings.
Yeah, so we're going to talk, go through the quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, defense. We're going to go through the rankings, talk about the players we like, who we don't like, and then everybody's going to give a breakout and a sleeper. So I think we're going to start with quarterback. And on everybody's list is Josh Allen.
Yeah, he's number one. He's overtaken the throne.
Number one.
Yeah, Mahomes has been one for what, 2 at least now, 3 years maybe.
Yep. And he's at number 2.
Yeah, he's right there.
And I can't argue with that. I mean, I like both of them, 1 and 2.
One thing that I did notice is Allen's the first, but he's at 43. Last year, Mahomes was number 1, and he was at like 25. Like, he was like a second, third round guy.
That's right.
And now we're Allen, who, I mean, just as much talent as Mahomes, and he actually adds more running ability than Mahomes. That's right. But his first, I mean, that's the first quarterback off the board, and they want him to go round 5.
Well, I'm really big on Herbert this year, and where he's going, I mean, I think he could possibly be better than both of them. I mean, I could see that happening.
Yeah, absolutely. That top 3 feel like the best 3.
Oh, no doubt.
Definitely.
And I think there's, those 3, and then there's a little bit of a drop-off.
Yeah.
And I know you're a big Lamar guy.
Yeah,
but
I'm a huge Lamar fan, but I'll even admit that those 3, they got the best, probably the 3 best arms in the NFL.
Yeah.
And they're all young. They're exciting. I mean, those are also 3 teams that everyone's expecting to compete in the AFC.
Yeah.
Well, they're all in the same division.
Yep.
Oh, no, well, Buffalo.
No, I'm sorry. Buffalo's not. Kansas City and the Chargers are.
Yeah.
So those games, they're going to have to throw the ball. They got to score lots of points.
Yeah. So you've got 3 5,000-yard candidates, and then you go to 3 guys that do a lot of their work with their legs. You got Lamar, Kyler, Hurts. Yep. So what do y'all? What's y'all's mindset about that?
I'm big on Hurts this year. I think he's got a chance definitely to be a top 5, and I mean he could even be better. If he's definitely got the rushing, the touchdowns.
Yeah.
If his passing gets better, which it looks like it's got a big chance whenever you add A.J. Brown to it. So I'm expecting him to have a big year. I would probably, in my rankings, put him at possibly number 4.
Definitely.
You see, I think Kyler should go down a bit.
I definitely think Kyler is higher than what I think. Because, for one, you're losing Hopkins for 6 games.
Yeah.
Not saying he's been as big of an influence as he has in the past, but you're losing him for 6 games. Yeah, you add Hollywood Brown, but
he's kind of a boomer bust guy.
He's also, his hands are suspect. If you look at the drops over the last several years, he's always at somewhat of the top since he's been in the league.
And Baltimore wouldn't have just let him go if he was that good of a player.
Which,
Yep,
and that also says something about somebody that, I'm pretty high on as well. And
well, I'll just say I picked Jalen Hurts over Kyler Murray yesterday in the draft that we had. So
I think I did it about 2 weeks ago. I did the same thing.
But
the The Hollywood Brown situation, though, is he not getting any discipline? Because he got arrested a couple weeks ago, right?
I have not.
I feel like that hasn't been talked about any.
I have not read anything about it.
Well, it looks like these they just keep pushing this stuff back, trying to get till the season's over, and then they'll take care of the stuff. Because I mean, Kamara's the same way.
Yep.
And for the fantasy football sake, I hope that's what happens.
That's right.
So yeah, you got the 3 big arms, then you got the 3 rushers, and then you get into the, I guess, boom or bust candidates almost. You could see these next set of guys take a step back to maybe the lower half of top 15, or they could be top 5.
They all have question marks by them.
Yeah.
I mean, Dak, his line's banged up. He's wide receivers are banged up.
Yep.
He lost
Cooper.
Yep. I expect him to take a step back.
I do too.
Tom Brady's a little older.
Yep.
But
45 now?
last year had one of his best years ever.
That's exactly right.
So, I mean,
it's
I would never put him very far down. Rodgers lost probably the most talented wide receiver in the league.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's going to be that's going to be a big hit to him.
But he's still Aaron Rodgers.
But he's still Aaron Rodgers, 2-time MVP the last 2 years.
Yep.
Wilson should be better, actually.
To me, that's where the one that I think would be ahead of this entire group would be Russell Wilson. You're coming in completely getting away from the shackles of Pete Carroll, that's been holding him back for years. And he's also getting – I think the weapons are a fair trade-off, between DK and Lockett, and then you get Cortland Sutton and Judy.
It's probably a slight step down, but what he loses in that, he gains in O-line.
And his running backs can catch the ball out of the backfield, too.
And he played in the cold weather in college, so he's familiar with playing in the cold, which he did in Seattle as well.
Yeah.
But,
he's wanting to prove a point. He's got a chip on his shoulder. That means a lot.
And he's already locked up that deal. You know, some people think that, when they lock up that deal, they're going to slack off. But to me, Russell Wilson seems like that guy he wants to prove
he's a hard worker.
He's worth that deal.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty high on him in this section. He's one of the ones that I target in just about every draft, especially if he falls far enough.
Yeah.
And he's been falling in a lot of drafts.
Yes, he has.
And then right behind them, in that same, you got a run of 6 quarterbacks in the overall rankings from 89 to 94. You get Burrow and Stafford rounding out that group. So the 2 guys that made the Super Bowl both had great seasons. I'm actually kind of shocked Burrow's that low on the rankings.
Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't lose any receivers.
Yeah.
They upgraded the O-line.
Yeah.
That's right.
So
one thing I don't understand is in most of the rankings, almost everything you look at, the Cincinnati Bengals have 2 wide receivers in the top 10. If you're going to have 2 top 10 wide receivers, how can you not have him higher?
And a top 10 running back.
He's throwing to these 2 guys. Where are they going to get the yards
That's
from?
That's exactly right.
I don't understand why he's that low if you think his team's going to be that good. It makes no sense.
The best explanation I've heard, which still doesn't hold water to me, but a lot of his yardage and touchdowns were chunk plays to Jamar Chase last year.
Absolutely.
So his average average per catch and runs after the catch, they were all way above the norm. So a lot of these analysts are thinking it's going to come back and regress. But once again, like y'all just said, increase your offensive line. You still got a stud running back. You got Chase and Higgins, but people don't forget Boyd
has
been doing it for years.
Is
sure-handed as anybody.
Third option, and then not only that, something a lot of people are overlooking, which is another one of my favorite targets late. He added Hayden Hurst, which is one of the most athletic tight ends in the league as far as that goes.
And he's never really been given a chance to play with a quarterback like Burrow.
That's
well, he started out with Lamar, but Mark Andrews was there. He was going to get all the targets. And then he went to Atlanta, who was just bad last year.
Well, and look, Atlanta got the tight end out of the draft, so he wasn't going to get –
that's true. That's true.
But Burrow has been doing this his whole career. It ain't like
– he
just started doing NFL. It's the same way he played at LSU.
Mm-hmm.
it was those big plays.
People have been sleeping on him ever since he's been playing, it seems like.
And
he can just make it happen. I mean,
what about I hate to change subjects, but I'm excited to see Kirk Cousins this year.
If anybody's listened to this podcast, they know I am
Kirk
big
Cousins,
on Kirk Cousins this year.
He's finally got a offensive-minded head coach.
He's finally going to get to throw the ball. They're not going to run it every time.
Exactly.
He's
Let
got
Kirk cook.
He's got the weapons. I mean,
and
he's got maybe the best, one of the best, if not the best tandem.
Yep.
If Thielen can stay healthy. I mean,
Well,
I'm expecting Jefferson. I mean, I'm big on Cup. Don't get me wrong, but
I think Jefferson's going to do what Cup did last year.
I think he's going to be the number one wide receiver with this new offensive coordinator. And if that's the case, I'm expecting Kirk Cousins to be around 5,000 yards and possibly 40 touchdowns.
Dude,
I think he's going to be insane.
Yeah, put $10 on him to win MVP.
And Jefferson Offensive Player of the Year. That's a bet that I've been looking at lately. So, so we went past that group of, I guess, boomer bust guys in that 90 range. And now you got, I guess, undervalued guys, honestly, because this next set of three I like a lot. Trey Lance, Derek Carr, Kirk Cousins. I think all three of them have top 5 upside.
Yeah, I think Kirk definitely ends up in the top 10 and possibly, middle of that, like 5, 6.
Sorry, I'm guessing Lance is above Carr just because the mobility.
Yeah,
they're always going to give those
and
rushing
Shanahan.
yards an advantage.
You got to factor that in.
I mean, with Carr, the addition of Adams on already what he's done,
and that's about where Carr was last year.
Yeah.
It feels like they didn't really give him a boost for getting the best wide receiver in the NFL.
And he's had over 4,000 yards the last several years.
That's with new coach, new OC every year. Yeah. And you're getting Josh McDaniels this year.
That's right.
Yeah, you would hope that would bring it up a bit too.
So if you waited and ended up with Carr, Cousins at the end of the draft, and you walked out there and you was stacked with wide receivers and running backs, you'd have to be pretty happy because that's happened to me almost every draft.
Yeah. I mean, I would not be shocked at all if Lance, Carr, and Cousins finish above that group of Prescott, Brady, Rodgers, all of them.
I totally agree. And Trey Lance could end up being one of the best quarterbacks. We just don't know.
Lance could easily be in that Lamar, Murray, Hurts range. I mean, he's got the same skill set as them, but he just hasn't proved it yet.
Well, he's got the quarterback coach there to do it.
Straight up.
And there's no way that coach would have him in there if he didn't believe he was the best chance they had.
Yeah.
The only thing to me about with Lance, there's been a lot of speculation right before the season started. He still wasn't ready.
Yeah.
And then we come in. I mean, he's looked okay in the preseason, but what also worries me about drafting him, if he does not perform up to par, they restructured that deal with Garoppolo, and they're not just going to tank the season just to let him play. I don't think. I mean, Shanahan's
they're a playoff team.
Yeah, and so if he's doing terrible, will they put Garoppolo in, and you have that backup quarterback essentially that you drafted?
I think it's going to take something drastic for him to lose that job. I think he's going to do good enough, and they've got a good enough foundation around him where even if he struggles a bit, they can probably still get wins.
Yeah,
I don't think they'd have put him in that situation if they didn't think he was ready and he was the quarterback to take them to the playoffs.
From a fantasy standpoint, I don't feel extremely comfortable about having him as my QB1.
That's right.
But something that I've liked doing, because just of where he goes in that 10 to 11 range, like yesterday I got Mahomes, and then I got Lance as my backup.
Yeah.
Well, Lance will probably not play, but if he goes out there the first couple weeks, goes crazy, trade bait.
Yeah.
And we all know that San Francisco is going to run the ball a lot.
That's right.
Yeah.
No matter who the quarterback is there, they're going to run the ball. It's going to be split just about 50-50 on run passing.
Yeah, for sure. So any more quarterback talk y'all want to do?
What do y'all think about Tua?
He's
the next. I guess he's right at
him and Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields is right there.
Fields.
Jameis Winston should be higher.
Well, I believe Lawrence and Fields, I don't believe they're going to be good, but they're going to be better.
That's right.
I don't know about Tua.
He's
got more weapons.
He's got more weapons. He's
got Tyreek Hill. That can
Tyreek
change a
Hill
lot.
is a game changer and a play waiting to happen.
And the guy on the other side of him can do the same stuff. He's mini Tyreek Hill almost.
Yeah.
And then
they're like we've said, they're the fastest team in the league.
And I think Chase Edmonds is a boost at running back for sure.
But
and
then
they got Mostert too.
That's right.
So
and there's
they've
another
got the
one.
weapons.
Gaskin's still there too, I think.
And,
yeah, he is.
Man, I would take Gaskin out of all this.
I think Edmonds has the edge right now.
But if
Mostert's
Mostert is
healthy,
if he's healthy, 100% healthy,
he's
the
extremely
best
fast
back out of those. But he's never been healthy.
I think Jameis 188 overall seems really low.
Yeah, that's another one I was going to
The
ask
Saints are
about.
still going to be a mostly run team, I think, but still, I'd be shocked if he finishes as a QB 20. I'd be really shocked.
Well, they're going to be in games where he's going to have to throw the ball. To keep up.
And even in Tampa, when he was throwing 30 picks in a season, he wasn't no QB 20. He was closer to 15, 10, something around there, just because of the amount of passing yards he had.
And they didn't go up and get Olave not to throw him the ball.
Exactly, yeah.
And he's going to be throwing it deep to him. I mean, he's
So let's move on to running backs. Probably the most important position in fantasy every year. And this year it's probably the weirdest I've seen in a long time.
It's not deep, that's for
at
sure.
At all.
Well, one thing is a lot of these teams are going to 2 running backs.
Yeah.
So I think there's about 8 personally, and then I think it's a big drop off. I think you have to go in your league, and get one of those 8.
Yeah, I think if you leave the first 2 rounds without a running back, you're probably going to be in trouble.
Yeah. And I think as far as fantasy goes, I mean anybody could get hurt, but I think Jonathan Taylor might be the safest bet in fantasy football. I mean, you're going to get close to 1,500 yards with him.
Great O-line play. Better quarterback.
They're going to run the ball.
He's got a quarterback whose arm will be respected.
That's right.
Carson Wentz, they just load the box on him and say, oh, make Carson Wentz beat us. They can't do that to Matt Ryan.
I think Matt Ryan is a more cerebral player than Carson Wentz was also. Not saying that Carson Wentz, was dumb or anything like that, but I do feel like
Matt Ryan's got that experience.
He's got that experience, but he just
he's been in the league forever.
That's
right.
Mean,
he's seen it
there
all.
There ain't nothing he hadn't seen.
Exactly.
Nothing he's not going to be.
He's been to the playoffs.
Been to the Super Bowl.
Been to the Super
And
Bowl.
lost.
Heaven forbid.
28-3.
And but yeah, no. Taylor, and he's the total package. As far as seeing somebody that big move that fast, like I don't know if he was up there last year for the fastest sprint speed.
Yeah.
In the league. I know he was top 5 as far as that goes.
And the Colts, they seem to have finally left that committee because for the past probably 5 years.
Oh, yeah, that's not a committee anymore.
I mean, Mack and Hines were it for 2 or 3 years probably, but seems like Hines has finally eased his way out, and Max, I think he get cut from Houston the other day. He's not in Indianapolis.
He's on their practice squad.
Okay,
now.
yeah.
And I heard an interview with Taylor, and seems like a really smart guy too.
And this was to be expected from him coming out of college, honestly, and it's paid out, honestly.
And you say top 8, I would have to make an argument for 9 because I know Swift in Detroit's not the sexiest pick.
I love him,
but that guy last year for me, it was one of those guys that I didn't want to draft in one of my leagues, and he just kept falling because nobody wanted him. I guess because he was from Detroit. We
love Swift in Detroit on that podcast.
And I think he's definitely in that mix with the catches. I mean, his yards per carry average is up there.
They've got a really good O-line. It doesn't get talked about enough.
He's like
honestly.
an Eckler.
That's right.
Almost like an Eckler.
Yeah, and I'd have to argue. I'd feel. I mean, not that I'd want him as my one personally, because I want one of those other top top guys.
Yeah.
But if I had him as my one, I would still feel okay with his in PPR as his catches. Because
if you had him as your number one, then you'd probably have one of the top
wide
3 or 4 wide receivers to go with him, which would be you'd be set up pretty good.
Yeah.
Christian McCaffrey,
the biggest question mark in the NFL.
So with McCaffrey, if he's healthy, he's the best player in football.
Yeah, if he's healthy, he's
going to score
he's
you.
putting up an insane amount of fantasy points.
He's going to be in top 5 every week.
That's right.
I mean, you can write it down. If he's healthy, but
I mean, even last year when he played 6 games, 8 games,
he was top 5.
Those games that he played, he killed it.
And I heard a statistic. It was been about a week ago or so that Christian McCaffrey, not last year because he was out most, but I think it was the 2 seasons before, in his average out of, I think it was 12 or 13 games, he still had more points than Jonathan Taylor had last year.
Wow.
Oh, I believe it.
And, if you get, and that's what one of the analysts was talking about, if you get him and you get 13 games and he has more points than Jonathan Taylor did last year, is it worth it? The only thing is, who knows when those 13 games are, and are they going to be toward the end of the season when you need him to make the playoffs or in the playoffs, or is he going to make it the first 12 games? You're going to be 12-0, and then he's out, and
Or if he's guaranteed and plays every game, which could happen.
That's right.
I mean, you probably have a good chance of winning your league.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
It's a tough thing to see him at that 2 spot. This year I never got that high position like that, so I never even had the chance to draft him, but it's not too crazy to be up there and then take Eckler or take Henry over him, I don't think, just because of the question marks, but
he went 4 in ours last night.
Yeah. Henry went 2.
Yeah.
Just because, Henry's a safer pick even though he was hurt last year.
That's right.
But so let's talk about that next group, because I feel like there's the 2 players, Taylor and McCaffrey, who the safe pick and the boom pick if he's out there.
Yeah.
But then you've got Eckler, Henry, Najee Harris, Cook, Kamara. Those feel like a great group of backs.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like Henry number 1 out of those. I mean, I know Eckler catches a lot of passes, but before Henry got hurt, he was dominating fantasy football. I mean, he was by far the number 1 running back whenever he got hurt.
That's right. And he doesn't have to have a lot to succeed. You can tell when you watch him play. He's physical freak, just can do anything he wants to. And if they would just pass him the ball a little bit more, I don't even think it's a conversation for us not to put him up with those top 2.
Yeah,
but the fact that they don't really throw him the ball quite as much. But also something to think about with him. What if Malik Harris ends up working his way in there sometime, and that rushing threat, which Ryan Tannehill ran it some last year, but Malik Harris is a whole nother level as far as the rushing threat. Could that help Henry out, open up a little bit more?
It probably would help him.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
If Willis comes in, you could see that whole dynamic of that offense change.
Well, honestly, taking a little off of Henry might make him better.
Yeah.
Throughout the year.
And you might see that this year because Deontay Foreman, when he played for Henry last year, he wasn't bad at all.
He proved that he could do it.
So, and he's still there, I think. So, if you saw Henry lose a carry or 2 a game, if you're a fantasy owner of him, I don't think you'd be mad about it at all.
Definitely not.
The thing about Henry, he didn't play a whole lot his first couple of years.
Yeah.
He sat on the bench his first year, kind of worked his way in. So he don't have near as many miles as you think he has on him.
Yeah.
Now he got around a lot at Alabama.
Yeah.
Then for a year or 2, it wasn't quite as bad on him. But his off season is crazy. He's going to be in the best shape of his anytime he comes into the league.
And he's mostly been pretty durable. Last year he got hurt, but besides that,
the only thing you worry is sometimes when they get that first injury, it just kind of your body starts.
And
giving
how old
out
is he now? Probably 26, 27, something like that. So
I still think he's got a couple of good years in him.
Yeah, But once the running backs start getting towards that late 20s, early 30s, you start getting worried.
Well, there's going to be a point.
28. Okay.
Oh, he's older.
Wow.
But you know.
But he's a freak. He's a freak.
He's a freak, and he did his. You know, there was a couple of years where he didn't play a whole lot too. So you know.
So Najee, that's an interesting one to me. I have him in 2 of my 3 leagues. I'm honestly concerned. What I think every time I look at him is the Saquon Barkley situation. I don't want to jinx it, but Saquon, his rookie year, he was great. Played on a pretty bad Giants team. Second year, he goes out there, tears his ACL. Harris, first year was great, had a ton of volume, played on a pretty bad Steelers team, doesn't have really good O-line. Now he's coming into year 2. What's about to happen?
Well, last year, if I ain't mistaken, he had the most carries in the league.
Yeah,
that's right.
And that's probably going to go up this year.
I mean,
I wouldn't doubt.
They didn't get anybody to take any carries away from him. I know that.
He is definitely a number 1 bell cow. I mean, I think the Steelers are going to play defense and they're going to run the ball just like they always have.
That's Mike Tomlin's MO.
Yeah,
you know.
But there's a question mark with the offensive line.
Definitely.
You know, it wasn't great last year. I don't know that it's much better. I think they might have tried to do a few little things, but I don't think it
still
improved that much.
It's a lot of young guys that are trying to prove themselves.
That's
still.
right.
But I think the quarterback situation is actually better for him.
I was about to say, not to tarnish Big Ben's name, but he was
horrible the last 2 years.
Way out of his prime last
the loss
couple
of a
years.
Hall of Famer is going to help him.
I definitely think he would be an example of one of those that probably should have retired maybe a couple years sooner.
But they still won games with him. Yeah. I mean, even though as bad as he was.
And that's just Steelers culture. They just find ways.
That defense.
I think he's in a better situation with the quarterback. So he's going to get the volume. There's no doubt about that.
If it's Mitch Trubisky week 1, which I think it will be, and probably for the first couple weeks, I don't think he's that bad. I think he can do some decent things. Yeah. Like he led a pretty terrible Chicago team to the playoffs. Yeah. I mean, it's hard to say led because there's more defense and stuff like that, but still, he's had some good experience.
He didn't screw it up.
No. And it's hard to say that anyone in the NFL that's starting is going to be a drop-off from what Big Ben's been.
Well,
he didn't do nothing but throw a little 5-yard slant, and that was it.
And, I heard a stat today whenever I was listening to a podcast that he has a winning record as a quarterback.
Mitch?
Yeah. I mean,
and
like
he's been on some pretty bad teams, too.
Yeah, some really bad teams.
We saw the Saints play him.
I mean, if anything else, I think he can be a decent game manager, for them.
For sure.
He can hand the ball off.
Yeah, that's right. Or he can throw a screen pass is what you're hoping for.
He can probably throw the ball further than 20 yards downfield.
Yeah, and that's something else with a poor offensive line. Normally you're going to have some checkdowns, because you're not going to have the time. And you just hope that, in your case, it goes to Harris and not Freiermuth, which –
that's true.
Freiermuth seems to be a popular target there also.
And Deontay Johnson, that's like that's where he gets most of his action is right around the line of scrimmage.
That's right.
He gets those little short catches and makes something happen after.
But
one thing about Harris, too, that I'm kind of worried about, he came into camp with a sprain.
Yeah, a Liz Frank injury in his foot.
Pretty big, but they said it didn't need surgery. But I'm afraid this might come back, during the year after running the ball for 4 or 5 weeks really hard. Does it come back and start bothering him again?
That's right.
That's the only thing about him. And if it ever, gets bad enough, that's season ending.
Yeah.
So that's another question mark about him. But he's definitely got the talent. He's one of the most talented running backs.
And he's going to have the opportunity.
And he's going to have the volume. That's
absolutely.
For sure.
So, then the next 2 guys, you got Cook and Kamara. I feel like there isn't a ton to say about them. You know what they are now. They give you good value.
Well, Cook
probably is better.
I like Cook's upgrade and a better offense.
Yeah, and he's not going to run the ball as much, so he might make it through the year. Usually he's hurt, halfway through the year, and he misses 3 or 4 games, so you better get his back up if you've got him.
Yeah,
which is a great running back too.
Best handcuff in football.
And I think that they're making an endorsement with Cook because I've read that they've been shopping Madison. I don't know what they're looking to get. It's either an endorsement for Cook or an endorsement for the guy that's in third string.
He's probably getting close to his contract year.
Yeah,
well, he would make a good running back for somebody.
That's right.
I mean, they might be able to get something pretty good out of him.
Yeah.
Actually, but you wait until somebody gets hurt, then you throw him up there, and you get.
They're not going to give him up without a haul for sure.
No,
because he's definitely a starter on several teams.
No doubt.
And then I think Kamara's going to do his thing like he always has.
Exactly.
Kamara's going to end up as a top 5 easy. By the end of the year.
To me, when draft season started, he was even lower. Which you had the scare of the
suspension.
The suspension.
That seems to have gone away by now.
It definitely has.
And he had it as far as Kamara a down year last year.
That's right.
But I expect him to bounce back and have. I mean, you could actually see him in the top 3 and wouldn't be surprised next year.
Well, the pass threat that is more real this year is going to help him out, hopefully, a lot more, at least, where they don't stack the box quite so much.
Well, that quarterback will definitely – they're going to have to spread the ball out because everybody knew that they couldn't get the ball past about the 20-yard line last year.
You got Marquez Callaway as your number 1 out there. And,
undrafted guy.
They're like, oh, well, we like our corner against him any day of the week, one-on-one.
Now you're bringing in Mike, you're bringing in Jarvis, Olave, and what I think is going to be pretty big for him, Mark Ingram.
That's right.
We saw what that happened whenever Ingram was there before he left for Baltimore.
Yeah.
Like that thunder and lightning combo that they have, that helps Kamara out a lot. Because something that I hated about last year with Kamara was that his carries were at a career high and his catches were at a career low. I felt like that should have been the other way around. He needs to be involved more in the passing offense than the rushing offense.
Well, then another thing is they were trying to run him up the middle. They got to get him on the outside. That's where he does his damage.
Yeah.
You don't want to run him up the middle. You want to use Ingram running up the middle.
But we didn't have nobody last year.
Weaken that defensive line up and then get him on the outside and let him go.
Yep.
It's gonna. I just think he's way underrated this year. Way underrated.
Then to round out the top 10, you get Joe Mixon, DeAndre Swift, and then Leonard Fournette. That's an interesting one there. But let's talk about
solid.
Mixon and Swift.
He's a solid. You know what you get in 1,200 yards.
That's right.
Probably 8 to 10 touchdowns.
double-digit touchdowns.
He's always on that fringe top 10.
And he's in a good offense. You always want to look at a guy in a good offense.
That's right.
Because
Well, they're going to they're going to have more possessions. They're going to move the sticks more. He's going to get more touches because they're not going to turn the ball over as much.
And they can't stack the box on him.
That's right.
Throwing the ball all over the field.
And that's something, early on in his career, he didn't really have that. And I remember I drafted him. It might have been his rookie year or the second year. And it was rough, man. You're talking like 15 carries for like maybe 50 yards. Because, and then you'd watch the game and there's, 8, 9 people in the box or 8 people in the box, whatever. And it's just like there's no other threat. And then now he's finally got the help.
Joe Burrow has made him so much better.
And we know he's not afraid to check the ball down to him either.
Yeah.
And
great pass catcher.
And another thing about him, I think he's only like 25.
He's 26.
It seems like he's been in the league forever.
Well, he's already on that second contract.
But I mean, he's still got 3 or 4 good years left.
Been in the league since 18, I believe. So 17. I'm sorry, 17.
Yeah.
But he's 26.
So he's been there 1 year longer than Saquon.
Yep.
Saquon came in at 18. And then Swift. We talked about him a bit.
That's right.
I personally this year think he's a bit above Mixon. They're kind of flip flop. They're ranked right beside each other. I just think the opportunity for Swift in Detroit. I think he's going to be probably the number 1 option of that offense for fantasy sake. And Mixon, you're looking at the number 2, maybe 3 option. Jamar Chase, you got to put above him, and then Higgins, depending on their pass and run balance, Higgins could be above him, Mixon could be behind him, either one.
I agree.
Well,
they're both great.
You definitely have the upside with Swift.
Yeah.
It depends on what you're looking for. If you're just looking for that steady running back to get you, maybe 20 points a game.
That's right.
Swift could possibly be the one and be a home run and get you, 30, 35 points a game.
Yeah, I think the touchdown upside with Mixon is there, but
Definitely.
the catches are going to be there for Swift every game too. Yeah. Both should have a pretty safe floor. I mean, I think like Josh
can't
was
go wrong
saying,
with either one of them.
Yeah,
no.
That's right.
And then Leonard Fournette to round out the top 10.
He's the one I really don't know about.
I don't like
all
it.
those
I don't either.
running backs in the top 10. I think coming into camp overweight, I think that hurts him.
I think the offensive line hurts him a lot more.
They've lost
too.
a good bit.
Yeah, they'll pretty much lost the whole thing.
Yeah.
I mean, and I do think it hurts Brady as well, but I think it hurts Fournette the most on this team.
Yeah.
And I think they're in a lot of shootouts, and they're going to have to throw the ball a lot.
Yeah, and they've got some decent defensive lines in their
Definitely.
Conference.
Because even the Falcons, I mean, that's one of the best things they have. They still got Grady Jarrett sitting around there.
Yep. And same thing with the Saints. You got to face all those teams twice a year.
Well, I've avoided him in every draft.
I have as well.
The best thing that he's got going for him is that Ronald Jones is out of there.
That's
it feels
right.
like he's finally going to get get all the carries and all.
But
the
he was
touches.
pretty much out at the end of the year anyway.
Yeah.
Fournette pretty much got everything at the end of the year.
And it's funny you say that, but then now there's been a fair amount of buzz about this Rashad White rookie that's come in and saying he's looking pretty good. And the more I read about him, the more people like him. And
that kind of makes me think of, though, it was either last year or the year before, Keyshawn Vaughn.
Yep.
That they had the same buzz. They were like,
right.
Vaughn's going to take over by the end of the year. It didn't happen.
Well, they did give him some opportunities, but he squandered them pretty terribly.
Yeah. I think he had like a 50-yard touchdown one time that he scored, but yeah.
But another thing that's going kind of under the radar, we'll see if it pans out because they tried it last year, but they signed Gio again and brought him in.
Yeah.
Possibly for that James White role in Tom Brady's offense. And does that take
He's
some of the
healthy now,
catches? It
so.
will, yeah. And so does that take some of the catches away from Fournette that he had a fair amount of last year?
And he's not even a good pass catcher. He kind of transformed that last year, but in Jacksonville, that was never his role.
That's right.
That was one of his weaknesses, honestly. But last year, they almost kind of forced him to become a better pass catcher. Yeah, if he loses that, he loses a lot of his value. So outside of the top 10, let's talk about one or two guys.
I really like Williams. I think he is the most
completely
talented
agree.
young running back in the league.
Got him in
if he gets
several leagues.
If he gets that full work.
Well, he ain't going to get the full, but just say he gets 60%.
Yeah.
Because he had 50 or less last year. If he gets 60% and gets 4 or 5 extra carries and another catch or two, he's going to be a top 10 running back.
And not only that, but who's to say they're not hanging on to Gordon and going to try to trade him after an injury or something?
That's true.
I wouldn't. Even Gordon says.
Yeah,
that's
oh,
yeah. And then not only that, but let's not forget the quarterback upgrade. The best quarterback he's had a chance, and that's going to help out a lot, that threat, And
the
Cortland
receivers
Sutton's
are all healthy
back,
now.
I think he's going to have, if he gets the opportunity like we're hoping he does, I think he definitely squeezes into that top 10.
Yeah, he's a value.
He's got that top 5, top 6 upside,
That's
honestly.
right.
He could easily slide into there.
I like him a lot as well.
Next year, I think he could be a guy that you see amongst that group of Najee and Cook in the rankings.
Well, he is in a keeper league. He's got to be one of the number one targets.
He is my keeper this year. Yeah. Anybody else you want to talk about?
Connor, he had a lot of touchdowns.
And you can't bank on that every
He's
year.
got to go down. But they did get rid of Chase Edmonds, so he's getting everything.
I like him, but it's like he's also got somewhat of an injury past. He's had a fair amount of soft tissue injuries in his history. The touchdown regression
more. So is he going to get hurt?
Right. But if they supplement the pass catching when he loses some touchdowns, I think that could help a pretty good bit.
He's become a good pass catcher towards the middle of the year.
Definitely. Well, and he was a pretty good pass catcher when he was in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Big Ben checked the ball down to him a fair amount, and he did well with it.
That Kingsbury offense, you've got to rely on touchdowns if you're running back.
That's right.
He doesn't want to run the ball at all.
But he could also be a value at where he's going.
Definitely. And I've seen him fall a lot farther than that. And I've seen him go after, Chubb, Barkley, Jones. I've seen him a lot of the drafts. He's going around that Zeke, Montgomery. He's going right ahead of them, but around the Zeke, Montgomery, Cam Akers. And it looks like, and I guess this is kind of updated since my last draft, but Cam Akers has bumped up a little bit more
and I don't
than
like
he was
that.
before.
I don't like that.
I'm not a big fan of that either.
Words out of camp is that Darrell Henderson's almost going to get more running back one work than he is.
Yeah, because they get injured so much. They're worried about it, so they're going to take carries away and split them up more.
I don't understand how he's above Nick Chubb. Yeah, Chubb's got Hunt behind him, but it's
Hunt
Nick
wants
Chubb.
out,
Nick
man.
Chubb's freaking good.
Hunt wants out.
If Hunt does find a way to get out, and somebody picks Chubb, they're going to
Chubb's
really
top
like
5
that.
with ease if that happens. Yeah. So anybody else for?
What do y'all think about Saquon? That's the biggest question
scares
mark in
me.
football, just about.
I kind of feel like he's going to have a bounce back, but
I don't want him
I don't
because
know.
I'm scared to death of him. But if he happens to hit, somebody's got the steal of the draft.
I can't lie, though. I drafted him in 2 of my leagues fairly high last year and got burned, so that probably has a little bit to do with it, but his offensive line's terrible. Daniel Jones has been hit or miss, but, I mean, is that
more
Daniel Jones
miss than hit?
Yeah, I mean, but
I don't think Daniel Jones even makes it through the year. I mean, unless
they got Tyrod there now.
I mean, he's terrible.
And then not to mention the turnover in the offenses and the coaches. That just can't be good.
And Dable, not a guy that comes from a run-friendly offense at all.
I mean, and I just see more of what happened last year. Maybe he stays healthier, maybe he doesn't. But I remember last year watching several of his games because I drafted him so high. I mean, he would literally get the ball handed off, and somebody would be touching him a lot.
Yeah.
And that's just –
it's insane.
That's terrible.
Last running back I want to mention, he's a bit further down, but it's probably been the hottest name this offseason, Dameon Pierce.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So you've seen him rise to 27 on the board, 79 overall. I mean, probably 2 weeks ago he was 120 range or lower. But
I'm scared of a Houston running back.
I think he's going a little too high.
You know,
yeah, I do too. I agree with
a lot of people are scared of him. He's got a top 10 offensive line, which a lot of people don't recognize.
Yeah.
Davis Mills took a little bit of a step last year at the end of the year.
Definitely.
Added some weapons on offense. Nico Collins, I think, will take another step. He is a big, athletic wide receiver. You still got Cooks there as the deep threat. Something that just happened recently that when he gets up to speed, I think will be big. They signed O.J. Howard, which has kind of disappeared a little bit whenever Tom Brady come into Tampa Bay. And then, Gronk came in. He just kind of fizzled out. He was with Buffalo, I think, briefly, and then they let him go. And then now he's in Houston. I think he's still got something that he can give to an organization like that.
For sure.
Did he say O.J.?
Yeah, he did. O.J., as in O.J. Simpson, right?
Oh, wait. Which O.J. are we talking about?
Yeah. Make that 25 straight references of O.J. on the podcast.
And but they let Marlon Mack, go, and I guess y'all can cover this.
We have an O.J. counter.
Yeah,
I got you.
We mentioned him on 25 straight podcasts.
Oh, okay. But
we have his biggest fan as one of our.
Also, but Lovie Smith's he's a run first guy. He's that old school hard nose. I think they're gonna give him the ball a lot. And then another really good stat that I've heard that I really like about him, apparently, which I didn't know this until this offseason. Everybody's talking about him. He lined up in the slot like 20-something% of the time in college or something like that.
Really?
And so that means he can catch the ball.
Yeah.
So who's to say he's not a workhorse?
As a runner, he's more of like a power guy.
He is,
and
that's
weird
why
that you see that paired with a slot receiver.
And that's why I feel a little bit more strongly about him than some of these guys with a lot of buzz. And you talk about some of the young guys with a lot of buzz that I'm not high on. I gotta say Breece Hall. I'm trying to figure out where this is coming from. Somebody said, one of the coordinators or coaches mentioned when they were talking to one of the beat writers that they're viewing Michael Carter and Breece Hall as a 1A, 1B.
Yep.
So if you got somebody that's a 1A, 1B, how's he going so high around all these other mainly 1A guys?
And Carter was a good running back last year.
He wasn't bad.
And he was drafted with pretty much the same capital that Hall was drafted.
And they still have a pretty not so good offensive line. I don't know what their
And
rankings
it's still the
are.
Jets. That's
and it
terrible.
is. It's
That's
still
gonna
the
be
Jets.
behind in the second half and have to throw it every time.
And then not only that, Houston's playing in a dome. So they don't have to worry about the weather affecting them as much. They might have a roof where they can open it, but either way they can control it,
And a fairly weak division.
Yeah.
The Colts they're still pretty good defensively, but Titans don't have a really good defense. Jags certainly don't.
I think Houston's one of those sneaky offenses this year that could do something.
I agree.
I think they're going to run the ball more, which could slow it down. Now, depending on, I haven't looked as much at their defense. I'm pretty sure it's probably still fairly terrible.
Yeah,
so,
what Houston's defense, their whole thought process seems to be fine. Whatever guy can't get a good contract, give him about 1 year for more than what his value is.
Yeah.
Let him play, rejuvenate his career, and leave.
But Lovie Smith, he had some really good defenses when he was in Chicago. So maybe he can work some magic on that and help them out. But I like Dameon Pierce a fair amount. He's sneaking up to where he's not that value that he was.
Yeah. But I would take him over Sanders, Singletary, Clyde.
Yeah, the upside is so much better.
But once you get to the Elijah Mitchell range,
and
that don't seem right.
I can't take.
And let me correct, I do like him as my running back 3, not my 2.
Yeah.
So and that's. Once again, that's who I like there.
Well, my sleeper in here is A.J. Dillon.
Yeah,
I just think he is very talented. They're going to use both running backs a lot. He got a lot of carries. They almost split him last year.
Yep.
He had more touchdowns than Aaron Jones. I mean, for where he's going at the bottom of drafts, he could be a steal. And if anything does happen to Aaron Jones, he's a top 10 running back.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite guys to target at the end of the draft.
Yeah, you fought over him in every draft we've been in.
I have, yes.
Not only that, in dynasty or keeper leagues, because how much longer are they going to hang on to Aaron Jones?
They just paid him, but still, that don't mean a lot in today's NFL.
Right.
Well, they're even talking about using both of them at the same time.
Oh yeah, they're going to use both. But
I think what I've
if
seen
something
recently,
did happen,
and they're
going
to give him. They said they're expected to give him 50 carries. 50 passes this year.
Yeah, they
and
said
if they
that
give
both
him passes to go with the.
Both are expected to be 50 catch running backs, and that's insane.
And could be double-digit touchdown.
So that to me, if that happens, that puts him in the top 20.
Yeah,
and he's going.
I think they
35?
both finish. I think they both finish as top 25 running backs.
Yeah. And he's as low as he's going. I mean, you could be used as your flex, and if you went no running backs or only had one, you could actually use him as your number 2.
Yeah,
honestly, yeah. And it would not be crazy to me if Dillon and Jones were 2 of the top 3 receiving, like in terms of yards on Green Bay. It does not seem like that's too far fetched. So let's talk about receivers a bit.
All right.
You got the top dog, Cooper Kupp. Insane year last year.
Yeah, one of the best, if not the best, wide receiver year ever.
Yeah, since something Jerry Rice, pretty much, or I guess that
Calvin Johnson. I believe.
Yeah, Megatron had a year. Randy Moss had like 23 touchdowns one year.
Yeah, I picked him up in like the 6th or 7th round last year in a keeper league, so I have him as a keeper. I've got him in 2 leagues this year. I mean, you can't go wrong, and they're going to throw the ball.
That's right.
Yeah.
I don't know if he reproduces what he did.
There's no way he can. Honestly,
but you can see that chemistry, and you can't deny that with a quarterback. And now that's what I would say. I would worry more about now that they're coming out with this elbow issue with Stafford. And I don't know if it's anything.
Well, they said
not.
He had it last year, though,
and that's what they're saying. Maybe they're just trying to make people feel more comfortable.
Yeah, that's
buy those
true.
season tickets up. Who knows?
Matthew Stafford is an Iron Man. He got beat to death in Detroit. I'm not worried about him at all.
If something did happen, I would. That's what would worry me. I mean, if he's out there, him and Stafford, it could definitely happen. But I think the next guy's more likely.
Stafford off the field.
I think the next guy's more likely to put up that season.
I totally agree.
And
that guy is Justin Jefferson.
Jefferson, I believe, will be the number 1 wide receiver this year.
Yeah, I feel extremely good about that.
We've already talked about the new offense.
That's right.
I mean, what he's done already. Who would ever thought the top 2 out of the top 3 wide receivers would be from LSU?
Yeah.
I mean, is
off
that
the
not
same
insane?
Team. It's awesome.
Jamar Chase, number 3.
Yep.
So what do y'all think about Chase?
I think they do a lot of the same that they did last year.
Yeah. Big plays.
Big plays.
I feel a little bit. I think he's a little too high.
Well, T. Higgins is gonna hurt him because he is a great wide receiver.
I do think it depends on your league here. Because if you have a lot of big bonuses for big plays, I think he is still worth that up there because, it's not far-fetched for him to have one of those big plays every game. Yeah. I know everybody's seen the meme just about, and when they interviewed Burrow, he was like, Chase is down there somewhere, and I just let it go. And he comes down with it, Yeah. Sometimes there's two guys on him, and he's still coming down with it. And
it almost just feels too good to be true, the way that he works.
And I'm in a couple leagues where we don't have really bonuses, so that doesn't benefit. But then, one of my leagues I'm in, we have a lot of bonuses. So, that big, one big touchdown play like that puts up, 14 points. Yeah. And it's like, if you get that out of him, you can't deny the big play ability and the chemistry they have. He's going to throw him the ball. Yeah. And he could be a little high. He's going to be rolling the dice, but
number 6 overall just seems a little bit too much for me. I'd rather have that group of running backs like Kamara, Cook.
T. Higgins could actually have more catches than him.
Yeah.
Now, he won't have as many big plays, like you said, but he could have more catches.
In reference to what you're talking about, number 6 overall, I was more referencing number 3 wide receiver than,
number 3 receiver overall, I can feel, but I honestly wouldn't be shocked if he finishes outside the top 5 at receiver. Yeah. Just because the next guys, they're kind of more the number 1 clear cut. Yeah, Adams, Samuel, Diggs, they've got Renfro, Ayuk, Gabe Davis, those guys that are there, but none of them are the level that T. Higgins is. Yeah. T. Higgins, if he's somewhere else, he's in this top 10 range by himself. He's already 10 with Jamar Chase.
That's right.
He might be still top 7 if he's on a different offense. So,
but I think this is one of those offenses that can carry 2 stud wide receivers.
I think 2 stud wide receivers and a good running back.
And there's not a lot of those offenses, but this I definitely think you got to have a special quarterback to be able to do that too. And I think they can do that. Now, will it happen again? Who knows? But I think they have the ability to.
So that next group, you got Adams, Debo, Diggs, right at the turn of round 1, 11, 12, 13 overall. I feel like Adams is a little bit undervalued.
Yeah, I think he's going to have a good year, and you never know. Waller could miss half the season.
Right.
That's true.
Well, I think he already takes a lot of his catches away, and that's somebody that to me I'm a lot lower on this year is Waller because of this and the chemistry. I know everybody's
and the emergence of Renfro.
But their chemistry goes way back to college. We've already seen what that looks like with Burrow and Chase. And I think it's going to be that kind of chemistry again with them working in the off season. It won't take long to rekindle that.
Well, some of Waller's was because they didn't have nobody else to throw it to.
That's exactly right.
They force-fed him
that's
for
exactly right.
several games, just because they're – who else are we going to throw
And he's a physical mismatch for anybody, You can't put a corner safety because he's just going to go over him. You put a linebacker on him, he's going to blow right by him.
What I think is going to happen is Waller's going to have less yards, but he'll probably have a couple extra touchdowns.
Yeah.
Because they'll –
yeah, that's going to take some away in the red zone. They're going to focus on Adams.
Waller, honestly, he's their big play guy.
Yeah.
That's one of his best things is kind of those 40-yard catches. While Adams and Renfro, they're more of the inside the 10-yard catch guy.
And to me in this group, though, the one that I worry about the most is Debo.
Yeah.
Just because everything that happened for him last year was such a perfect storm.
Seriously,
And – he's already made a stink about this role that he had last year.
He wants to be more of a wide receiver.
He wants to not have, and I don't know if it's just because of him staying healthy, what it is, but.
But I will say one thing about it. Debo Samuels is one of the most talented football players in the NFL.
If they give him the ball like they did last year, he is no doubt going to perform.
He was a legit MVP candidate.
Yes.
Because he did everything for that offense.
He pretty much took San Francisco to the playoffs by himself, the plays he was making.
Yeah.
Because Jimmy G wasn't doing it.
Well, what worries me and what we kind of talked about a little bit before we started this podcast is his head coach being somewhat temperamental with his players.
Yeah.
Does he not give him the ball as much because he said something publicly about his role, you know, and didn't keep it? I mean, who knows? But Kyle Shanahan, he's smart, so he knows that's the best playmaker he's got. He's going to give him the ball, but
and we talked about this too. IU is going to have a bigger role this year. He's going to take,
and he supposedly got the connection with Lance.
They do, and he was in camp early where Debo didn't get there, and they're also talking about there is not really a connection with him and Lance right now.
Yeah, and he missed a lot of the valuable reps.
So Ayuk actually could be undervalued.
That was another point. Like, does Lance pull the ball down and run it more than waiting for some of those big plays to develop for Samuel and getting him the ball? You know,
I could see
because
that.
he is more of that. He's one of those guys. He feels more comfortable running than waiting for that play to develop and pass the ball. Now, you know, but he has that cannon just to freaking haul it as fast as Debo can run.
Jimmy G, one of his things that helped Samuel out the most was he'd get Debo the ball within the first 10 yards, and then Debo would just make something happen after that. But Lance, he can throw it deep. He's got the arm talent. But while he's got that arm talent, he's also got the legs that are going to take away a couple plays. But I don't know. I think Debo's still going to be good. And something you got to feel good about is that he's paid now.
That's right.
He's not in there pissed off about a contract. Now, there could be a little bit of downside to, he got paid, he don't care anymore.
That's right.
But he wants to win.
I was about to say, most of them want to win, and that's what it boils down to.
One thing about him I like, though, it just takes him one or two plays, and he's got all kinds of points. I mean, just one little breakaway, and he's ran 80 yards for a touchdown.
Big play potential, like we're kind of talking about, or like I was talking about with Chase, you know. And I'm not saying that he's not going to be a stud player. I just don't.
Well, it's going to be hard to live up to what he done last year, for sure.
But between him and Chase, they feel like they had too much go right last year.
That's right.
Like there's got to be some regression.
Yeah,
a little bit. Same with Cup.
Yeah,
those seasons were just too insane. Where they'll be really, really good, but they won't be quite as amazing.
But if Cupps is not quite as good, he's still the number one wide receiver in the league. Even if you take 200 yards away, and he's still the number one
that's true.
wide receiver in the league.
So, then you have Diggs, who there ain't much to say about him.
Yeah.
He's safe.
I think he's just Mr. Consistent.
The question mark is the next one, CeeDee Lamb. He could be the number one wide receiver in the league, or he could be out of the top
50.
20.
Yeah, he could be.
This goes back. A lot of people are worried about the offensive line, which they need it to develop. But does that create more quick pass situations instead of them running the ball as much?
I don't think the offensive line hurts CeeDee that much.
I think, if anything, they just try to get the ball out in space to him more, creating more plays to him. I mean, it definitely helps that their wide receiver core is completely depleted.
Yeah, who else are they going to throw it
Cooper's
to?
gone. Cedric Wilson's gone.
There was buzz about Jalen Tolbert, and then he's out there catching like 2 for 7 targets in the preseason, you know, and it's like, man.
Where's he from? They took him. It's some small school, right?
Hang on, I'll tell you.
Because I didn't really understand that pick. I think he's just got the speed, so they wanted something. And that's what a lot of receivers get drafted as in that like day 2 range is if they're just athletic freaks, they take them.
Well, one thing I like about CeeDee this year, though.
South Alabama. There you go.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Josh.
CeeDee is going to get the volume. He's going to have the chance. I mean, they're going to force feed it to him. He's going to get the chance to be a number one. Now, Willie, that's going to be up to him. But Dak's going to be looking for him and looking for him a lot all year because they're going to be in a lot of shootouts that they're going to have to throw the ball.
And Kellen Moore, he's got a fairly decent offensive mind, if not good. You know, I think he's going to find ways to get him the ball more.
Yeah.
You know, and especially if they're having problems running the ball, which is what I'm thinking is going to affect more with losing Tyron Smith. And I mean, I'm not saying he is going to be out for longer than they're saying, but, I mean, they said he ripped his hamstring off the bone. And that is just,
he's probably
to me,
done
for an offensive lineman,
this year.
I can't see him coming back.
They brought Jason Peters in for a workout. I think they might have signed him, or they were about to. He's probably going to be in on the team sometime soon. But still,
think they
he's
gotta
like,
bring
what,
somebody
40
in.
now? He's got to be getting old. He's been around forever, so he ain't gonna do much. He's not gonna be Tyron Smith. Tyron Smith's one of the best tackles in the league. a unique thing about CeeDee when you look at that top 10, top 15 wide receivers, he's like the only one that doesn't have a really, really good number 2.
Yeah.
That's
so
right.
he's going to get probably the most volume.
And it's not like he doesn't have a good quarterback.
That's
so if
exactly
he catches,
right.
just say 80% of the balls that's thrown his way, he's going to be the number 1 wide receiver.
Yeah.
Possibly.
I guess the next guy, I mean, Diggs has Gabe Davis, who hasn't done it yet in a regular season, but everyone's expecting it. And Gallup, he's got the talent, but he can't stay on the field.
That's right.
Gallup's never lived up to what he was supposed to. And you know, he's banged up, too, coming off ACL, right?
Yeah, they didn't put him on the PUP list, which means they think he'll come back before 4 games, but he's still not practicing from what
And he's not going to be the same player. No. You know, he's going to be slower. He ain't got the timing down, so he's not going to hurt him at least early in the year anyway.
He's still rehabbing but not practicing.
Rounding out the top 10, you got Tyreek Hill, who takes a quarterback downgrade by a wide margin, I'd say.
I'm not big on Hill. I mean, he's still going to – I think
he's still Tyreek Hill.
But he'll have some big games, no doubt, but he's not going to be consistent. And you're looking for consistency in your top 10.
One thing I do like is Mike McDaniel being there. I'm a big fan of him. Yeah, he's not coached a game yet. I just think he's going to do some unique things.
Yeah.
Honestly, you saw what Debo did last year with San Fran. I wouldn't be shocked if they use Waddle and Hill in kind of some of those situations.
That's right.
Get their best athlete in space, let them make something happen.
Yeah, and they talked about that because, you know, Tua doesn't have the biggest arm out there, so that's why they're trying to just get the ball to their playmakers and let them do their thing.
Runs after the catch.
Yeah.
So Hill might have a career high in catches this year.
Yeah,
but his yards might not be as what they were in the past.
But to me, like I still remember Hill. He's always been kind of that boomer bust player. He's going to have that 40-point game, and then he's going to have that game with like 3 points.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And
I stayed away from him this year. I didn't have him.
I think it's just more of the same from Hill, even though he does take a decrease in quarterback play.
Still a great receiver. And then next up, you got Keenan Allen, T. Higgins. Keenan, that's my guy.
I've
loved Keenan,
but I really think he's going to step back this year. He's not. I don't.
No, he better not.
I don't believe he's going to be a top. I actually believe Mike Williams might be a better wide receiver than him this year.
I've been a big fan of him. But he's 30.
Yeah.
And that seems to be for positional players like running backs, wide receivers. 30 seems to be kind of the number where we see a change. You know, there's some freak athletes out there, but you also got a really talented athlete pushing behind him in Josh Palmer.
Yeah, he hasn't been talked about.
One of the
best
number 3s in the league.
And it just takes a little bit and to give him that opening. I think, you know, and that's one that I'll probably allude to on this show as I'm on it, is if you ever take wide receiver handcuffs, I think he's got to be
I've actually got that situation.
One of those wide receiver handcuffs that you got to have, because if Williams or Allen goes down, Palmer. But I think Palmer.
And neither one of them will play the whole year.
That's right.
Yeah, that's
very
really true.
I mean, I hate to say it, but one of them's going to be.
Yeah, because I mean, Williams,
both of them have concerns.
Yeah, because I think Williams. Let me double check, but I'm pretty sure he's 28.
And
he's
known
really?
for
I'm sorry,
getting
27.
He's only 3 years younger than Keenan.
Yeah,
that feels crazy.
Yeah. Which he didn't do anything his first few years.
Yeah.
It was like
he was
just
always
recently over the last 2 years started actually doing well.
But
I think
Herbert helped that out a lot.
They've got a good
I think if Williams
and a good offense.
If Williams can stay on the field, I think it helps Keenan more.
Definitely.
If Williams gets hurt, then Keenan has to be relied on a little more. Then I think that kind of takes the value away from Keenan and that whole offense. But if they're both out there, I think they're both top 15 guys. Or top 20.
I really like him, but I just can't have him on my top 10.
Yeah, I just like a lot of these other guys around there more. That's what it boils down to.
The other ones have more boom, but Keenan's just a safe pick to me. He's gonna get 10 catches. He'll be around 80 yards.
That's right.
Like he's gonna be in that. He might not get a touchdown. But Mike Williams might go for 150 and 2 touchdowns.
That's right.
But Keenan, if he's out there and he's healthy, he's gonna do what Keenan does.
One thing about Keenan Allen. If you've ever heard some of these other football players talk about, they talk about him being the best wide receiver as far as running routes and hands.
Yeah.
everybody says he's the best wide receiver in the league.
Yeah. If you ask anybody and just say
His
your top
attention
3
to
receivers,
detail.
they put him up there.
Yeah.
I love it.
We already talked about T. Higgins.
Yep.
Yeah, so anybody outside that top 10 that specific?
I love DJ Moore and Michael Pittman. Those two right there, I am big on this year.
I like DJ Moore, Pittman, and I really like A.J. Brown. I know some people are kind of shied off on him because it's Philly, it's Hurts, but I mean,
I think Hurts takes a big step this
He
year.
looked pretty good as a passer last year. Freak athlete, great yards after the catch if they just get him the ball. He's still young. You know, they're saying that he already has developed a really good chemistry with Hurts.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I don't think it's far-fetched to say that Hurts is a better passer than Tannehill.
And Hurts is going to be
Honestly,
looking. He's going to be looking for him.
And so if he's getting an upgrade in a quarterback, I mean, he was putting up 1,000-yard seasons with Tannehill.
Yeah.
I don't see, why it's going to go any farther down. And to me,
and they're going to throw the ball more in Philly this year.
Yeah.
They'll probably throw the ball more than they threw it in Tennessee.
Yeah.
They don't have that,
and they
that
have
running back that's
great,
going to get 30 carries.
And they have a great offensive line.
So,
and they got an easy schedule.
That's right.
Pretty
I
easy
like
division
A.J.
to pick
Brown
up.
a lot there.
and
I like Moore and Pittman, like you said.
I like Pittman to be my breakout. I believe he could be easily in the top 8 this year, possibly top 5. I think he's going. I mean, he had a good year last year and a big quarterback upgrade.
Yeah, I'll say, and that goes back to another quarterback upgrade for a wide receiver. You just can't underestimate that.
Well, the same thing with DJ Moore.
Yep, which is kind of
DJ Moore though. Over the last 2 or 3 years, is 1,200 yards.
That's right.
And now you're putting in a better. So if you give him an extra 100,
it feels
200 yards,
it feels like DJ Moore is almost underperformed, but he's been really good still.
Yeah,
it feels like he's got another level to his game,
and
I think Baker can bring that.
Just throw
underrated player too.
Statistic, I can look it up to nail it down. But another stat that I heard about Moore over the last 3 seasons. Let's see, where's his touchdown? He's had 4 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns.
Wow.
And he's the only player ever to have that many catches and yards and only have, I think it's like they did it like less than 5 touchdowns.
Yeah,
but,
I mean, that makes sense.
Statistically, it's almost impossible for him to do that again with that many catches and yards. And they said that last year about him, and he did it again. So not saying that can't happen, but statistically,
McCaffrey got a lot of those touchdowns that he didn't get.
And he's due touchdown regression. As many catches and yards as he has, I mean, and that's one thing that I've heard about him. It's just, it's like, man, you just makes you nervous to play on that. But I mean,
and as much as people hate on Baker, he's an upgrade over Darnold and PJ Walker.
Definitely.
Baker, he's done it. He can do it. He can give a receiver fantasy value. You've seen that with guys like Jarvis and Odell. They didn't do it for a ton of time, but he's a better quarterback than those other 2 guys. You're gonna see improvement.
That's right.
And DJ Moore and Michael Pittman, those are the guys that I kind of see in that CD range where they're the surefire number 1 guys receiving wise.
Yep.
I wouldn't be shocked if either of them finish above CD and get in that top 10.
Yeah.
I have them both ranked in my top 10 ahead of Allen and Higgins. I just couldn't put two off the same
Bengals,
team in my top 10.
Especially with the work that those 2 are about to get. And before we move on from wide receivers, one we skipped over, Mr. Consistent Mike Evans. 1,000 yards, about 7-8 touchdowns,
Yeah. Don't he have the streak for the longest?
Like 8 to open his career. 8 straight years, I think. The longest in NFL history.
Yeah. And I would almost put McLaurin right there close to them.
Yeah, and
I think he's going to have a good year.
A slight quarterback upgrade. It's still Carson Wentz, but
yeah. I mean, he's the focal point of that offense, though, which is key. Going back to Mike Evans, I mean, he keeps doing it, but he has had so many hamstring injuries.
That is very true.
Soft tissue, man, and he's 29.
Yeah.
And then they don't have the time, I don't think, on the offensive line for him to get some of those big down-the-field plays that he's had in the past.
Yeah.
Their offensive line being depleted like it is, I'm not saying Tom Brady can't make some magic happen and, probably pull his offensive line from the Patriots
Yeah,
days out
never
of
doubt
retirement.
Brady. Come on now.
But if he doesn't, I don't know if he has that time to get the ball to him down the field like that.
Yeah, I couldn't draft him in where he was going in any of the leagues.
I didn't draft him much last year. I didn't draft him all last year. I haven't drafted him this year, but those just work against him to me. I don't know if he's worth that high of a pick.
Something that it might not matter a ton, but it feels like they almost have too many wide receivers.
Yeah.
You've got Russell Gage, who's going to provide some value. Godwin will be back. Julio freaking Jones is there.
Yeah.
You don't know what's going to happen with him, but it wouldn't shock me if he does something big.
Yeah.
You still got those young guys that are sticking around too. I mean,
that's right.
Of all the wide receivers they got, if I've got to pick one, it's Godwin.
And that's the same for me too. Him and Brady had that chemistry last year. He targeted him several, and Brady loves that over the middle of the field wide receiver.
Yeah,
not afraid to catch the ball, and Godwin's that guy.
Godwin was he was a top 10 wide receiver before he got injured.
That's right.
Yeah,
I think he was like 6th if I ain't mistaken.
Yeah.
So he's definitely looking for him.
So let's move on to tight ends real quick. It's not a ton to talk about with them, but the top guys are the main focal points.
Yeah.
For the first time in at least 5 years, Travis Kelce's not number one.
But he is.
Yeah.
In my book, he's still number one. He hadn't been knocked off the pedestal to me.
I
don't know.
He's going to get a lot of those targets.
He's going to get a lot of them. He's going to have over 1,000 every year.
No.
And I tell you something about Mark Andrews. I like him. Don't get me wrong. But do y'all know his biggest games was the games that Lamar Jackson wasn't in?
Really?
Yes.
Really?
So his biggest games of the year was when Lamar wasn't playing.
And Huntley was just throwing a quick ball to
him. So, I mean, that's kind of big.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I think that's a steep price for Andrews, and I agree.
It is.
I think Kelsey's the number one target on his team.
He is.
Just like Pitts.
He's the safety blanket for Mahomes every year.
But the only thing we just talked about, there's that age thing. It's creeping in there. Kelsey is 32.
Yeah.
But he's done pretty well with it.
Yeah.
He seems to, minimize the big hits.
Yeah, he's very durable.
I think the volume's there for him. No matter
volume's
what
there. After this year, I'm probably not as big on him. I just think there has to be a point where he kind of goes down.
That's right.
But I don't think it's this year.
Yeah,
I think we get at least one, maybe two more great years.
I think so
but
too.
But speaking on that number one option, I mean that's Mark Andrews as well.
Yeah.
Hollywood Brown's gone, so you're looking at Rashad Bateman, who hasn't proved anything yet, and then Mark Andrews.
But Baltimore's going to run the ball.
They will.
Yes.
KC's going to throw the ball.
And
yeah,
Andrews has somebody creeping up here as of late on him that he's super late pick. Not somebody
likely.
Not somebody that I'm drafting, but I'm definitely keeping an eye on usage. And I've seen an article come out today that he's probably the number 3 option in that offense currently, behind Andrews, Bateman, and then now Likely. Yeah. So he's got some pressure
in the preseason.
He's got some pressure coming behind him where Kelsey doesn't have that pressure, I don't think, in Kansas City. Not saying that he's going to overtake him this year, but does he take some of those catches away? And and like you said, they're also in a predominantly running offense.
And they'll use multiple tight ends.
Yeah.
The only way Kelsey doesn't do good is if he gets hurt.
That's right.
I mean, that's the only thing that's going to keep him from being a number 1 tight end.
Yep.
And that could happen, and I hope it don't. But.
So those are the guys that are around that 2 to 3 round range.
Yeah.
Then you've got a guy who might finish as number 1, Kyle Pitts,
the unicorn.
Yeah.
He's a wide receiver in a tight end body.
Playing tight end is what he is.
On a team that has nothing else.
The only problem with him is the team he's on.
Yeah.
Will they be able to get the ball to him? That's going to be the big question.
He's still going to be probably that first look every time.
Definitely.
Marcus Mariota is not the passer he once was, but he's still experienced and he can get the ball to him. He knows what to do. They said, he looked pretty decent, and he I think they're gonna be focusing on getting him the ball and letting him do work.
I think he's going to take a step up, and you can see that in the rankings. What'd you say, Ty?
He's going to take a step up at his house.
Oh yeah, Ty says he's out for the year. Ty's trying to use reverse psychology to get him on his team. But yeah, Pitts, he's an incredible talent.
Yeah, at the house.
But then right after Pitts, you've got Waller and Kittle, who
a couple of question marks.
Yeah.
Those two.
Yeah.
I mean, Waller. We
Last
talk about his
year-
health.
Yeah.
last year they were in that Pitts range of that third round, fourth round range, but now they're down to back end of the sixth round.
Yeah.
So Waller, you bring in Devonta Adams, that's obviously going to hurt him.
Yeah.
And he's had some injury issues.
That's
Kittle,
I don't want no part of Kittle.
I don't either.
Even when he came back last year after he was injured,
It just wasn't the same.
he
That
still
emergence of
wasn't
Debo, I
performing
guess,
like he was.
And I got another stat as far as Kittle goes. His 2 games with Trey Lance, he did nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, he had his worst 2 weeks.
That's right.
With Trey Lance.
I just feel like the emergence of Debo just brought down his value a lot.
Well, and I think they run so much. All he did was block, which
And
he
he's
is
so
probably
good at
the
blocking.
best tight
Yeah.
end as far as blocking goes.
And-
there is.
Yeah,
That's
and
very
as much
true.
as they run, that's what they're probably going to be using him for.
Outside of fantasy, he might be the most complete tight end there is in the league. But for fantasy, it's hard to really love that number 5 ranking. Honestly.
As far as
That's right.
football players,
Oh,
George
yeah.
Kittle is one of the best
That's right.
football players.
Definitely. Now,
and I think-
until fantasy adds pancakes in for points,
Yeah.
and we won't be using him too much.
And I think number 6, I
Dalton
think Schultz
Schultz.
could have a monster year,
I
and I
do
think he
too.
could creep
He
up
could.
above Waller and Kittle this year.
I
Because who else they
completely
going to
agree.
throw it to? And he had a good year last year.
Yeah.
Kind of under the radar.
Yeah,
year.
I picked him up off the waiver wire
I did
last
too,
year
and
rode
played him some.
Yeah.
And I think he could have a big year.
I didn't take him this year. I think I just kind of got scared of just seeing
That's
that
right.
name there. It didn't feel right.
Yeah.
But I do
didn't-
think
I didn't
he
like
was,
seeing him at 6.
He was being drafted a little early because a
That's
lot of
right.
people kind of was thinking the same thing, I believe.
Well,
Yeah.
I just feel like there's a couple guys later in the draft that are probably going to have similar production.
Yeah.
Personally,
Like last year, I took Schultz in like the 14th round.
Yeah.
Because he had that potential to break out. He did, but he just feels a little too high. Then right behind him, you've got Hawkinson.
And I think he's being drafted too high. Too.
I think he is.
He's probably one of my least favorite in the top 10.
He's got the talent. He had the hype coming out the draft. It just I don't feel like it's clicked yet.
Last year, one of his big things, they used him to block.
Yeah.
Way more than they threw the ball to him, and I don't see that changing too
wasn't
much
it like
this year.
the first week he had like a monster
He did.
game, and everybody was on the bandwagon,
He did.
and then he went back to reality and was actually blocking more.
That's right.
You know, so he was kind of going off that first game of the year, most of the year. You know.
Yeah, I'm staying away from Hawkinson as high as he's getting drafted.
I tell you a player I like in the top 10 if he can stay healthy. If Ertz stays healthy,
That's right.
he's going to be in that
He
offense.
was really good in Arizona last year.
He's going to be good if he can stay healthy, but he's already
banged
up,
banged
and
up.
the season hadn't even started. Especially with
And-
Hopkins out, you know, they're going to go to him even more.
And, yep.
He's going to be great the first half.
And they're saying he's a close call for week 1 right now. So,
rounding out the top 10 though, you got Dallas Goedert, who was so good in Philly, he pushed Ertz out of there.
Well, I think injuries pushed
Yeah,
Ertz out
it was
of there.
kind of
It
both.
wasn't talent because I
Well,
don't know if y'all
I
remember
don't
the
know.
year he had a couple of
Yeah.
years ago. Ertz was
was top
pushing for
3.
one of the
Ertz
number
used to
one.
be top 3. Yeah.
and I mean,
But Goddard, even when Ertz was top 3, Goddard
Yeah.
was still a top 10 guy.
Yeah, I think
just 'cause
both
he's
of
got
them
the
got
talent.
drafted really early before when they were both. Was that last year they were both there before Ertz got traded?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
They both got drafted fairly early because of the 2 tight end sets
And
that
you
they
really
ran.
didn't know which one was going to,
Each
produce.
week,
That's
really.
right. But after he left, I mean, Goddard, he's got like that safe floor, but I feel like he doesn't have just a ton of upside. And then bringing in A.J. Brown, I think that limits his upside even more.
But at the same time, maybe bringing in A.J. Brown could take a little bit of pressure off of him because now that's another guy that's going to be even looked at.
That's right.
Last year it was just Devonta Smith and him, and then I only know who their number 2 wide receiver was. Like
Yeah,
Quez Watkins
I don't think
or
they
Rager,
knew who
maybe.
the number 2 wide receiver
exactly,
was.
Exactly. So
Well, I just don't-
maybe opening it up a bit. Goddard creasing over the middle. Get that quick little pass from Hurts.
Yeah.
I just feel like if you don't get those top 3 guys, I'm not.
That's how it
I'm
always
not spending
is.
a draft pick.
That's right.
That high on the rest.
That's
of
exactly
them.
right.
When I can get who is my sleeper as far as tight end, Cole Kmet
That's correct.
at number 11.
There's a couple guys right there at that top 10 range. Cole Kmet, Pat Freiermuth, and then Dawson Knox. I don't love, but
to me, if I'm not getting Pat Freiermuth or Cole Kmet, I'm dropping way down, and I'm going with somebody that might actually get a chance to perform with his athleticism, and that's David Njoku.
Yeah.
I love that.
He is the number 1 tight end on his team for the first time in a long time, because he was supposed to be
finally
2 years ago, I think, and then what they do, they went and got Austin Hooper out of nowhere, and then he's back to.
And all they did was piss off Njoku.
That's right, and he's a freak athlete. They have Amari Cooper, and that's about it. Outside,
and you can get him with the last pick of the draft.
And he's probably on your waiver
them,
wire.
A lot
right
of them
now.
not even picking him. You know, you
And
can get him late. Him
I
and
think
Hurst. Hurst could be another one.
Yep.
And
then also, like we were talking about earlier, said something about likely. Hayden Hurst, like you just said, and then even Austin Hooper in Tennessee. People forget Jonnu was like pretty heralded there for a while in Tennessee. Not saying it's the whole same regime, but Austin Hooper, that's what he does is catch the ball. And yep, and they haven't had a solid tight end doing that in a while. They lost A.J. Brown. They got Treylon Burks and Robert Woods. Robert Woods still coming back from his injury. Treylon Burks, I don't think, has looked as well as they'd hoped. They said they did come out and say they're going to focus on him in their offense, but Austin Hooper's a veteran. He's going to come in. He's going to run the routes right, and I think Tannehill's going to recognize that early on.
2 more that they might not do it, but I could see them sneaking into that top 10 range just because tight end's weak, is Noah Fant in Seattle. Yeah, the quarterback situation isn't great, but whenever there's not a great quarterback, that tight end option that's just right there, he's a freak athlete. Yeah. He's got the speed. Get him some little quick pass, let him work, do it, and then the guy that he was in front of, Albert Okwuegbunam.
Yeah.
Denver. Russ, he doesn't have a great history with tight ends, but he's had some that have, Will Dissly had a good year one year. There's been a couple guys that have been in Seattle with him that were decent, and it's just going to be a better passing offense this year. He's a really good athlete as well, so I wouldn't be shocked if he had a good year as maybe the number 3 option receiving behind Sutton and Judy. So yeah, tight end. It's like we said. If you miss out on Andrews, Kelsey, Pitts this year, I feel like you should just wait.
Yeah.
Unless you can get a good value from like Schultz falling a little bit.
If they
or
fall,
something.
But not where they're going.
No, I don't like taking Schultz or Hawkinson as an 8th rounder really.
Yeah.
Just because there's a lot of value you can get at other positions.
That's right.
I mean, I don't want any part of Kittle. Just
no.
Yeah, I honestly don't. No, I didn't. I haven't so far.
Because
so
where you got to draft him,
That's
you're not going to get the production.
Yeah. So before we go too long on this, let's just talk favorite defense, favorite kicker, just real quick.
Okay. I like the Colts this year as a sleeper defense. They got the easiest schedule in the AFC. They're going to run the ball a lot. So their defense is not bad.
No, it's a solid
they
defense.
Got
Week 1
really
against Houston,
players.
so that's always good.
So that's my sleeper pick because I'm not going to pick a defense early.
The one that I've targeted is the Niners. They're always going to be solid at defense. It's just the Niners' way. They added Traveris Ward from Kansas City, bring in another good corner. They play Chicago Week 1. I think they also play like 2 other bad teams, maybe Seattle. So they've got a good early schedule. That's what I like to look at defenses because more than likely come Week 3, they're probably going to be off your team.
Yeah.
Unless they've just got a good schedule and they're just absolutely killing it.
Schedule and matchups.
Yeah.
Because the NFL's so talented offensively that there's really no defense that's going to be matchup proof.
That's right.
I don't think there's going to be that Jacksonville defense this year or that Patriots defense which scored like every touchdown possible.
Just look like this. So they got Bills as number 1. Well, week 1 they're playing the Rams. Do you want to play the Bills against the Rams?
Exactly.
I don't, because that could be 43-48. You never know.
Well, the Bills might have one of the best defenses, like just talent-wise, but whenever you play the Rams, Titans, Dolphins, Ravens, that's not an easy schedule to open up.
For the last 2 or 3 years, I was listening to a podcast, and they were talking about if you streamed the number 1 defense every week, which was not always somebody that it was like the number 1 that was on waivers every week, you would have like you'd have like a top 3 defense for the season. No problem.
And you're playing.
I've been a big proponent of streaming a defense because you can always find that one defense on the waiver that's got a good matchup almost always, unless your league carries like 3 on the bench. You know?
Never thought you would play. Yeah. Like you might be playing the Houston Texans in week 8.
That's right.
You know, who would have ever thought you'd have had them playing?
Yeah.
But
if they're playing Jacksonville at home, it's worth a shot, honestly.
Yeah.
And
you got to play the matchups.
Yeah. My sleeper defense though is Dolphins. What a lot of people don't know, the last 2 years, the Dolphins last year were the number 3 defense, and the year before that are the number 4 defense in the league.
By the end of the year.
At the end of the year. And compared to last year, I think they are returning all defensive starters.
Yeah.
And then now they did have Byron Jones get hurt just recently. I don't know how long he's out for, but he did get hurt just recently, so it's a little bit of a setback. But they play New England week 1. You know, first year without Josh McDaniels.
And their offense is going to be
and their offense is going to be better.
Yeah.
So to me, I like them. They have it's a hit or miss schedule. They play they play New England, then they play Baltimore and Buffalo, Cincinnati. They got a rough stretch. Maybe you want to drop them, but after that they got Detroit, Chicago, Cleveland right before their bye. I mean, and that's
we don't like any team every game.
Yeah.
Oh no.
So you're just going to be.
But I think that's one of those you look out for,
something you got to think about with them, though. You're going from Brian Flores to Mike McDaniel. Yeah. You're going from defense to offense. So that could factor in, and maybe Flores was the reason they were one of the best defenses with not a lot of talent.
But I think keeping that same personnel is key, because I think you got those same guys leading. You might have a little bit different type of a theme in your, the way you run it. But
their defense played hard.
You are correct. Yeah. And
and they didn't get rid of anybody, so that tells me that they must like what they have.
And two more that I'd watch out. They're neither of them in the top 10. The Chargers. They've got the talent.
That's right.
Their division's freaking terrible. It's you don't want to play them really against anyone in their division, but that's probably the most talented defense.
Oh, it's the defense I like the most.
Exactly.
But I would not want to have to play them against the teams they're going to be playing throughout the year.
The other one is the Eagles. I think the Eagles
have
added
the
a lot.
Schedule.
Division sucks. You get to play the Giants and the Commanders 4 times, and then the Cowboys, who probably going to take a step back offensively, and just added Chauncey Gardner-Johnson from New Orleans. You added James Bradbury on the other side of Darius Slay. You added Nakobe Dean, who fell in the draft. They've got a lot of talent. I think they're going to be good.
I didn't pick a defense until the last pick. And I got the Eagles, and I'm happy because of who they're playing.
Yeah, see, I've got the Niners in 2, and I've got the Eagles in the other.
Yeah.
And then kicker, I've got the same kicker in all 3 leagues. I got Daniel Carlson.
Well, I love Evan McPherson, but I'm not taking him at where he's going because that's going to be my last pick of the draft no matter what. I'm going to pick kicker last, so I'm just going to take whoever's left. And it's usually, I think it was like Greg Joseph from Minnesota.
Yeah. I mean, there's 2 that I try to pay. I mean, this is kind of where I go with my homer picks. I like Lutz because I like
something you can watch on TV.
You can cheer for a Saints player.
Yeah, that's right. Because, I mean, most of the time in all your drafts here locally, you're probably not getting them unless you really spend a lot of capital.
They're going to be overpriced for sure.
But around 13.
The one that I really like that's not getting drafted much, I think he's going to have a lot of opportunity. I don't like where he kicks at because I typically like one that kicks in a dome, but I like Cade York. He's kicking bombs.
Yeah.
He's kicking for Cleveland. He's kind of a homer pick, from where he came from. But
why not pick somebody you want to cheer for?
Yeah, and I've got him in three. I think 2 or 3 of my other. I got Lutz in one, and then I've got him in 2 of my other leagues.
Yeah.
And but they're saying he's going to get the opportunity. They're probably going to not be scoring as many touchdowns this year as they did. The only thing, Cleveland's pretty notorious for not having the best weather.
Yeah,
but that's maybe something. But I mean, if he gets the opportunity,
they've also got a bad history of kickers. So maybe he breaks that.
And maybe
there's not a lot of
maybe
points
he does.
with kickers. There's not going to be a big difference.
That's right.
I mean, so you might as well pick somebody you like.
I love the Carlson pick that I got on mine. Dome, better offense. Just got paid. So, they have confidence in him, and he was the number 1 kicker last year.
History of a strong leg, and that's another thing I look, do they have a history of kicking, far? Because you want that guy that team comes in, they're like, I think he can make a 60-yarder.
Yeah.
Because if he
that's
does, that's more
points.
Yeah. So you don't want him to be like, I don't think we're going to kick this 50-yarder because we don't think he can make it,
And we mentioned all those guys, but if you can get Justin Tucker, get him.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I do like one other one, Tyler Bass, even though it's terrible weather. Buffalo's going to score a lot of points. So he's going to be able to kick a whole lot. He was pretty good kicker last year. So he's another one that's kind of going later than he did last year. So I've picked him up in a few leagues.
Yeah.
But that's enough for kickers.
That's right.
Yeah, that was a lot of
I guess that's probably enough for fantasy football because we've been going for a while.
Yeah, we went about an hour and a half right there. So we can save the rest of our talk for another episode. But this was great.
Yep.
I had a blast doing this. I'm looking forward to the future. Honestly.
So next year we're planning on doing this earlier before everybody drafts.
Yeah.
We was all scared to do this because we had our draft last night.
I didn't want Josh to know my secrets.
Yeah. So anyway, next year we're planning on to do it probably about 2 or 3 weeks earlier.
Yeah.
So y'all can actually use this when you go to draft if you want to.
That's right. You'll be able to use our picks during the week, our top plays and everything.
Yeah,
so
we're going to do this
we'll
weekly. We're going to start a weekly fantasy football podcast, and it's probably going to be towards the end of the week, but before like Friday or Saturday before the Sunday games.
Yeah.
Y'all got anything else?
No, that was a blast. I thought that was really good. All right, well, we'll take it out there. Chop on. Go Tigers. Who dat? There goes the can.
This ain't how it's supposed to be. It should be just you and me.